Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to the show. I have my soul sister, client, colleague, priestess, soul bestie with me today. Do you have any other words to add to the list?
No, I think that sums it up.
Michele Leeper is here with me today, and I'm pretty excited about this because we have a very deep connection and sistership, and you've really come out of your shell since I've known you. I've known a lot about your journey and your story, and there's more that you continue to share. And I don't know if I could do it if I was you, to be honest with you. So it's deeply inspiring. I pulled a little excerpt from not from your bio, but from, I believe, your landing page for your upcoming embodiment offering. And I just wanted to read it. And I wanted that to open up the conversation in the container for you to share whatever you want to share about where you've come from, where you're at now, and where you see yourself just continuing to catapult into the ethers with all of your growth and transformation. So this is what you said. You're like, I can see your face. You're like, what? So I didn't prepare Michele for any of this. So for those of you, when I do take notes, it's usually in a meditative state. And I literally am like, this is what we're going to cover. And then, of course, Michele also gave me this epic download last week of what she wanted to cover. And then we kind of fill the gaps with wherever spirit wants to take us. So this is what you wrote, Michele. I spent much of my life disconnected from my body and subsequently not fully present in my life. I lived in my mind and intellect at war with my physical being, developed eating disorders, could not embrace being pregnant with my two boys, gave my power away to addictions, suffered from a lack of self-confidence, and engaged in negative self-talk daily. So this was, you know, a lot of your story, a lot of your journey, and it moved me to tears when I read it. And it also gave me full body chills. And I would imagine that whoever's tuning into this episode, there's like a piece, a nugget, if not all of it, if not some of it, of like, oh my gosh, I've been there. Oh my gosh, I know what it's like to live in my mind. I know what it's like to be at war with myself. I know what it's like to hate my body. I know what it's like to not be present. I know what it's like to have, all of this mental negative chatter. So let's talk about it. Where do you want to kind of start about, yeah, who are you and why are you feeling so called to share your journey and your transformation with the world at this time?
Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you. It's always interesting to hear something that I've written quoted back to me. So the message that I hold in my heart is that we are not our circumstances. There were a lot of things that I endured from childhood through adolescence, early adulthood, that really might just take somebody out of the fight, like you said. I don't know if I could have done it, you know? And I feel really blessed that my guardians and angels, beings of love and light, have protected me along the way. Um, I just want other women to know that no matter what the circumstances were, or the potential victimization that they may have experienced in their lives, that is not the sum of who we are. Through this journey in particular, somatic embodiment, I was really able to, and a big part of that being assisted, activated by you, being in sistership with you. It activated the parts of me that were just waiting to melt. I was just ready, you know. In this next piece that I've written for a book called Sacred Connection, A Woman Reborn, I wrote that divine discontent came howling in the night, rattling my windows and waking me from my slumber. And that exactly is the experience that I had when I felt a yes to get curious and dive into this type of work, because I've tried so many different healing modalities. For me, this is what really kicked it all in, brought it together, connected the dots. And because of those results and in the way I get to show up in my life now as the woman that I always felt that I was, but wasn't really living as the woman that I felt that I was. So my desires were not matching how I was showing up in the world. My mind body disconnect really left this gap of how intimate I could allow myself to be with myself, as well as with my children, partners, even in friendships, you know. So, as a result of doing this work myself, it has completely changed how I get to be. And so that's the sovereign choice that I really want every woman to be able to embrace, that they have. They have that inherent choice. We all do. And not everybody had a traumatic childhood. And that's okay, because there's no comparison. You know, some people had very loving parents, very loving caregivers. But as humans, we all have something that created these fears and anxieties and this sense of unworthiness that has held us back in our life from really taking up and owning the big shapes, you know, really fully stepping into it. Um, and I think that there's this limiting belief that some women have, that it's arrogant or it's not polite, you know, things like that, to be so shiny. And I don't know about you, but I have fully embraced my shine. And I know that I have this now. And this is what I want to offer to other people, that they have access to this daily. It doesn't require anything but a willingness
Yeah.
to do it, to embrace it, to let it take you where it wants to take you, because our body knows we have all of that wisdom already within us. And so, some of the things that I've experienced through doing the work, that I've also witnessed other women experiencing, is that sense of confidence, that sense of, I am a divine creature. I am divine. I have my own answers. Um, Overcoming health challenges, moving those stuck emotions out of the body to create space for the things that we really do want to create, and tapping into what that or those desires actually are. So it's the freedom. I want everybody to know that they are free, and it's not a place that we go to. It's not a circumstance that we achieve. It's not a matter of success. Ah, it's a choice in our body to just be in it. It's a whole universe in here. It's amazing.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, there's so many places I want to take that. But one piece that kind of stuck out that I want to present is just related to the traumatic childhood piece. And just, you know, if you're listening to this and you can resonate with a traumatic childhood, beautiful, right? And also if you're like, oh, that doesn't feel like me, because what starts to happen is, right, we get in comparison mode, or like, my life isn't that bad, this person had it worse, why am I feeling this way, why do I have these thoughts? And what I found just through my body of work is that as children, we're sponges, and it really could be the smallest piece of feeling like you're not heard, or in order to feel loved, you need to do this, or the form of abandonment could be a parent being 10 minutes late to pick you up from preschool, or it could be a straight up, you know, loss of a parent, which you experienced, or just a non-present parent for a multitude of reasons. And so I just really want a presence that I believe that the deeper, the deeper, I don't want to say the deeper the trauma, but like the more life experience, the more that we move through, the more challenge, the more heartache, the more loss, the deeper our ability to be able to transmute that and amplify that into greatness, into our highest potential. And so I just want people, you know, because I've been there before where I'm like, oh well, I didn't really have that, so why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling inadequate? And so I want all ends of the spectrum, whether, right, whether you feel like you can relate to this or not, to know that this is what I believe by design, right? We come in as souls. Like, I'm pregnant right now. We're going to talk about we're at where you're at in your journey of womanhood and where I'm at. But I'm like, I'm not actually creating this human. I'm creating the body. This soul is eternal. This soul has lived many incarnations. This soul is coming in with lots of wisdom. Yet, when we're born, right, the forgetting begins to happen the moment that we come earthside. And then we have all of these experiences that pull us from center, that pull us from our essence, that pull us from that shine that you talk about by design in order for us to evolve. And so what I'm hearing from you, and when you and I both first met, we definitely have grown so much. How many years has it been, by the way? 3?
3 or 4. Yeah.
Three or
I'm
4.
I'm so not on the linear time space continuum though. So,
I know it can,
somewhere in there.
time is funny right now, but I feel like you and I have really anchored this in, like, this is by design. And even though it's hard, it's still hard. You and I are going through it all the time. You know, you asked me when I came on here, how am I feeling? I'm like, in this moment, I feel fabulous. However, ask me in an hour. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that. And I kind of want to jump into, you know, you've written, now you've become a published author recently, and you're contributing to another anthology, and you're also in the process of writing your own book. And I kind of would love for you to share. Can you maybe high level, like, we don't have to go super deep, but in the voice message you sent me last week, you talked about some of the themes of your childhood and some of and what you've had to really move through in the form of feeling it many years later in order to transmute it.
Yes. I always say I'll see how this banana unpeels. So, I think, well, I know one of the biggest things that came front and center for me while writing this next piece was the relationship with my mother and how that has affected me in so many years, even after not having her in my life. It's been more about 35 years now since I've actually seen my mother, because my childhood with her um was so intense on so many levels, as a result of her trauma, her childhood abuse, um and abandonment. I very much became a mirror for her experiences that she was not ready or at capacity um to look at. So I sort of became this blemish on her ideal um Christian life, you know. So she had a lot of mental illness, addiction issues herself, and she had very high religious ideation when she would have her episodes. And being the firstborn and a daughter, it was a very tumultuous relationship. with her. Um, in fact, in this chapter essay that I just wrote, I talked about how, well, first of all, I want to say that thanks to my mother, I've been baptized in 8 different religions, so if that gives you any perspective, there was this constant seeking for salvation, for validation, for the love and approval that she obviously did not receive in her upbringing either. And so we know about um, passing along that ancestral trauma. I have forgiven my mom, and I still don't completely trust her enough to have her in my life. So there was this dance when writing about certain things that came to be when I was living with her. And I only lived with her until I was 11 years old. And then I essentially just left. I got a Greyhound bus ticket. I had $10 in my pocket and a Army Foot Locker, and got on a Greyhound for 4 days from Texas to Wisconsin to go find my dad. I knew that my life was not going to become what it needed to become in that environment. And I was fearful of my safety and my sanity, so a lot of the religious ideation came up, feeling that, reminding myself the tiger is not actually running at me to eat me in this moment. A lot of what I've written is now coming from the scar and not the wound itself. And honestly, there is some tenderness. There's still some bruising around that scar tissue for me. Because the relationship that we have with our mothers is the most impactful one that stays with us, at least in my experience. So a part of that was, I was molested by my minister when I was 8 years old at the church that we were a part of at the time. And, it's like I knew that something very wrong had happened. And it's actually the first time that I remember leaving my body. And it's also the first time that I remember feeling shame. And so, of course, I went to my mother for comfort and safety, um, reassurance. And I told her what had happened. And her reaction was not what I expected. It was very traumatic. She basically called me a demon, told me it wasn't true. Why would I make up such lies? Um, Slapped me across the face so hard I bit my lip and it started bleeding. It was in that moment, because up until then I had loved her so unconditionally. I knew that she had had a very painful past as well, and that's why I didn't really grow up knowing that side of the family. Um, and so, she would cry. I remember her being, so small and fragile and defeated in a slump, on the floor in between the wall and the bed, crying. And it was like all I wanted as a little girl was to make her feel better, you know, to protect her. Um, and then when it came for me to be the one that needed protection, she completely denied me, abandoned me. And it was never the same after that. So, how it affected me growing up is that I fundamentally believed that there was something wrong with me, or that I was somehow different and deserved to be punished. Like I was sinful. The embodiment of Eve. I made the wrong choice somewhere and I was just going to be persecuted for it for the rest of my days on planet Earth, and who knows for how many lifetimes. So there's a lot in there, but and I'm going to take a moment just to breathe now, because that's some pretty dense energy. And I continue to release. It's not a once and done process for me. And I don't believe that it is for anybody else either. Like, just when we think we're there, whole nother layer presents itself and gives us the opportunity to up level, integrate and keep growing. So, yeah, my relationship with my mother really affected my self-esteem, and I hid. In fact, as a child, I remember hiding in my locker at school and not wanting to go out for recess, so there was definitely a lot of shame and guilt that I carried around with me. And it wasn't really mine. It wasn't really mine. So that's been a huge part of my healing process and what I have offered, if this is something that resonates with others. We are never alone. And I've realized through really embracing the courage to share parts of myself in this way, that we are all connected on some level, whether that was your experience or not. The feelings and the oppression that is something, oftentimes accompanied with those feelings is the same. And that is the stuff that we get to let go to really fully step into our highest selves and our full potential. And I haven't graduated. I don't know about you. I haven't graduated. Like, I'm always going to be a student, and what I have is to offer my experience, hoping that that's going to be in some way, in some part, a survival guide for others that are still in the pain and searching for the path. So there's a little nugget.
A little deep nugget. I really just want to thank you for sharing it. I know it's one thing to write about it, right? To take pauses and to be with yourself. And intuitively, I'm like, okay, how deep does Michele want to go, right? How deep does the essence of Michele want to go in this conversation? And I know that that's just scratching the surface on what you experience, but I just, like 11 years old, right? I would say, at least in the Western world, the majority of what little 11-year-old girls are thinking about are not that, right? They're not leaving home. I mean, I can't even imagine. And I remember reading about that or hearing it from you. I don't know. Now I've like read it in so many ways and heard from you, and we have a deep connection. And so there's always like a deepening, like the baptism in 8 religions, I believe you said, like that was something that I didn't know, right? Like there's just always more and more and more that I continue to learn from you. And I want to talk about, so we met in an intimate sisterhood container 3 to 4 years ago, but who's counting? And there was like this remembrance with the both of us where we also, like, there was this piece where we illuminated each other's shadows in such a profound way. And also, I can't even put words to it. It was like we were supporting each other at exactly what we were moving through. And at the time, of course, I didn't know so much of your journey. And it's like that container, and you didn't share a lot of that actually, but you shared other parts of yourself, right? It's almost like I feel what I learned about you was more present and then kind of moving like backwards in time, right? It's not like you were like, this is where it started. It was just like the unraveling of your experiences. And of course, I would do the same thing. This is what I've been through, and this is what the sisterhood container was all about. And what I recognized is so many of us, I feel like you really reminded me that we really have no idea where people have come from. We have no idea what people have been through. We have no idea how many masks we all wear as a human species to protect ourselves, to hide. And I'm so grateful for that container. And I'm so grateful that you and I just like dove in. We just dove into it, and we didn't make each other wrong for it. And we kept just leaning into, what is this? Why are these shadows? It was like the perfect storm for us to really look at the parts of ourselves where we were protecting ourselves. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, but I believe that the world is craving intimacy more than ever, and vulnerability. And it takes a lot of courage to share what you just shared publicly on an open platform where anyone can listen to this at any given time. And you've done it in these intimate containers, and now you're practicing sharing it more openly and publicly. So let's kind of speak to that. Anything you want, anywhere you want to go with the importance of those types of containers, how they allow us to practice, and how it's supported you in kind of where you're at now, and how you've had the courage to share.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's actually easier for me to share with my words my experiences. I am stepping into and embracing uh, the identity of author, but it's a completely different way of self-expressing. Like, I essentially am a storyteller, and at this point, an open book in more ways than one. Um, so I don't really feel any resistance around sharing, my stories, because I do believe that there is an element of something that someone needs to hear in that moment to moment. So while we were in that sistership container, it activated so many things with me. Our relationship with each other. I mean, obviously, this is not our first rodeo here. We've said it many times before. I'm fairly certain that we've been, sisters in another life. One of the most beautiful, profound things that came about from being held in that container was my ability to heal my sister wounds and to begin trusting and celebrating other women without feeling the need to compare myself or to get into jealousy. I'm not saying that those things were never present. They certainly presented themselves. They were offered for me to take a look at, investigate, get curious with, play in, practice with, and really cultivate the types of relationships with other women that I've always craved, So yeah, sometimes our shadows would bump each other, and it would, cause a reaction. But because of the women that we are, you were like you have been in many ways my perfect practice partner, you know, and we mirror each other in different ways. So you really provided a safe journey for me as I became willing to engage in a way that was completely different than the relationships with women that I had grown up with, thinking that that was the dynamic. As women were pitted against each other so often in our culture. And it is an incredibly powerful thing to fully support another woman in her journey with her dreams and just all of that. and to not take shit personally, like I'm not there yet, or I don't look this way, or I don't move that way, like it could be so many things. And so I'm grateful that you showed up and made the decision to participate in my life authentically,
Hmm.
with the shadow, with the light, because it gave me permission to explore in that arena as well, and really create with you the type of friendship and sistership that I want to have in my life. You're one of my most trusted friends at this point. And, if I received anything from the experience of being in that particular sister circle where we met, it's that I know we are forever bonded, you know? So I'm excited for everything that's happening in your life. It's an honor to be on the journey with you and to witness the unraveling as well. So I see you. Thank you for seeing me. And I know that you do. I really feel that.
I think well, first of all, thank you. I receive, I receive, I receive. And, it takes a willingness. I think what you and I brought to this relationship dynamic is the willingness to make mistakes, is the willingness to get it wrong, is the willingness to expose parts of yourself that you've never exposed to anybody, and to not make yourself wrong for it, right? Or to be triggered, or to be reactive, or to say something that you didn't really mean, or it was coming from a wound and not the scar, which I love, by the way. I'm like, I might take that and quote you, right? It's like coming from the scar, not the wound. Many times when we're in relationship dynamics, right? Like the wound comes up and there's reaction, and we just kept coming back, and gratefully, I mean, the container really set us up for success with that. The structure of that, I think this is why it's so much easier when you're in a supportive container like that versus trying to do it on your own. But it's really like one of these, my relationship with you in particular, right? It's giving me hope for a future of where else can I be this intimate? Where else can I make mistakes? Where else can I be willing to, you know, upset someone or hurt their feelings just out of me being in my integrity with an open heart? Where else could I potentially lose someone or have someone misunderstand me or not know how to respond or handle me in my truth, and me operating from this purest part of myself? And so that's what it takes. And that's what I believe sets you and I apart. And this is why I believe you and I are in this like quantum evolutionary shift, because it's the willingness. It like you gotta take the action. Like you gotta be willing to get down and dirty. And you and I know how to get down and dirty in the trenches, right? It's not like spirituality is not this like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies and divine light and enlightenment. It's quite the opposite. In order to have those ecstatic moments of bliss and joy and beauty and love and amazing relationship, it's like you got to get down into the shadow. You got to go deep in order to rise up. So I'm curious, why did you say yes to joining my embodiment circle? Like, what was it that, because we were in this container and I think I made you, and I was like, I feel like she's supposed to be in this. I was watching you soar. I was watching you expand, and I'm like, this feels like a missing piece. So again, willingness, courage for me to say, hey, I feel like this could support you without any attachment to what your answer would be. And then you said yes. So I'm just curious to know from your end, what was it? Because I think this goes for anything. Like sometimes we do need structure. We need containers. We need people that we trust. We need to do the thing where we're like, I'm scared shitless, but I know that this is what I need in order for me to up level. So I'd love to hear your experience of that, of like making the decision, saying yes, because you sat with it for a bit, a couple days, maybe a day, I don't remember, but you were like, interesting. I can't remember what you said, but it was like, I feel like this is a yes, but I'm going to sit with this. So yeah, I want to hear from you in that area to support people with why they should say yes. Like the container that we were in, right, was kind of this self-led container, and why we seek mentors along the way, and why we say yes to certain things in order to kind of propel us into, this is something that I probably wouldn't do on my own. So I'm going to do this so that I can like feel what it feels like, and then I can transcend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think that I was a full body yes. I just wanted to sleep on it. Part of my practice with myself has been learning to respond rather than react, to respect myself and give myself the space before responding or making decisions. Um, but you made it really easy, even though we've worked with a lot of the same I don't, well, maybe not a lot. We've worked with some of the same coaches and had some of the same, trainings and stuff like that. But I think that because we were in this intimate container and had that daily commitment and presence with each other, that accountability, that I was able to witness your transformation and the way you hold space. I don't even know if I have a word for it. It's beautiful, but you really do create safety. And I felt that radiating from you. There was also this element of just do the damn thing, you know? I know you're a Virgo and you have that high priestess perfectionist, and I have tendencies with her. But I know it was a huge deal for you to allow yourself to just embrace it, ride the wave, and step into doing what you're doing now, which is helping and supporting many women, myself being one of them, that's been gifted uh your support. What stood out to me was that you were very uh authentic about your offer, um and just who you are, you know and the message that I received from you was, it's okay to not have all your shit together to start something. You get to just make a decision and do it. So it's like you activated that. You gave me the permission to do that for myself, and that created even more safety and a really deep love, to be in the privilege of watching you sort of pioneer the path first, you know. Um, yeah, you have just supported me in so many ways, and I know I'm not the only one, So please receive that. And yeah, I'm really grateful to how you've shown up in my life and what it's created in our relationship.
Thank you, love. It's funny when things are articulated back, because I mean, I kind of have an idea what I said, but the piece around not having it all together, or just, starting, I mean, that's how I developed the program. And so I loved, I like brought that energy. I didn't even remember that I said that, or that was the energy behind it. But, that's a scary thing, to really lead with your intuition and to have like a framework of, this is what I feel it gets to be, and really let spirit fill the gaps, and to let it be co-created, and to let the magic just unfold week to week. And let me just say that I'm so glad. So this is where it's like having the courage to ask and having the courage to say yes, right? Again, co-created. It's a two-way street, right? Like I get to ask, you get to say yes, right? And I will never forget, I still, like, it's imprinted in my entire beingness. The moment, I know, you know, the moment that you've had many moments in the container, but there was a moment, and I know it's the True Love song moment. And what I witnessed in you was otherworldly. It was, there was it was 100% the truest, purest, most powerful, grounded part of you. No effort, just being, just beingness. And it was so deeply healing to me. So this is also the piece, right? I received from you being in your integrity, not needing to rush anything, not knowing, right? We never know when these moments are going to happen. You just kept saying yes. You just kept practicing. You just kept showing up. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, holy shit, what just happened? My life will never be the same. And whenever I listen to that artist and whenever I listen to that song, it's just like, oh my gosh, your power. And I know, again, that this journey was a small piece of it, but it's a culmination of you being in your body, right? Like the traumatic childhood, the all of it, like just so much of, and how that actually segued into your adulthood and parenthood and motherhood and relationships and work dynamics and everything. Like you have been unpacking and unraveling what so many would just be too afraid to reopen because of the pain. And now look at you, right? And what I'm hearing from you is like, it's the experience. It's right. Like what you have is your experience and forgiveness and learning to trust, and also being human enough to say, I'm still working through this. I still get tender. I still have my moments, of course, because we're human. And you're bridging that so beautifully with the integrity of you sharing your journey and not trying to act like you've got it all figured out and being forever a student. And again, I believe that this is what the world is craving more than ever. We don't need any more perfectionist people leading, pretending like they don't have any hurt, that they don't have any wounds, that they don't have those moments of weakness. What we need is reality. Is us to be really grounded in our reality. And the reality is sometimes the world hurts. Sometimes we hurt ourselves, sometimes the world hurts us. And again, it's all by design. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that before we move into the stages that we're in on our womanhood journey.
Yeah, actually, as I was listening to you, I was having that body memory of that moment dancing to that song in your class. And it's really just like I blew my own roof off in that moment. I was like, I knew I was in there, and there you are, and it was just like even the activation from the words of the song, my true lover is with me. Like, I am it. I am it. You are it, and that has been the awakening. There is no external validation. There is no wrong way to do it. We are the muse, we are the sage, we are the oracle. We are divine. We don't always wake up every day in this human experience feeling that way. So the gift of being able to just say yes, step in and see what comes up, like how deep are we willing to go? Thank you for giving me a safe container to experience that moment of absolute self-forgiveness and self-love, because that is what I took away with me. That is what lives in me now. And just hearing you recap that moment, it's like my body remembers that feeling. And so that's what I get to return to at any time I choose, that moment of absolute empowerment. Like, I am limitless, and this is what it feels like when I am truly in my own essence.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Do you have time to go over a little bit on this episode?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a question that I have for you.
Okay.
So you've forgiven your mother. Have you forgiven the church?
Hmm. Yes and no. Yes, because I'm not going to judge the whole institution because of what one person did. I know that there are many people who abuse authority. Um, and I can also see the beauty in what religion offers. I am very clear that that way of spirituality is not for me. The God of my understanding that I grew up with was very hellfire and brimstone, very vengeful, perpetuated humans as these subservient, unworthy, lowly creatures. And I am not that. I do not identify with that. I do not feel that in my bloodstream. So even though I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the teaching, there are still those threads of truth that are universal, that connect us all. And so I can separate what happened to me with a person of authority within the church from the teachings and how they are, in their own right, a blueprint for how to live a more connected, valuable life in Earth School. Mm-hmm. And so much more. So, yes, I have forgiven the church, and some of it is still tender because
Yeah.
it brings up that Madonna horror complex. That's what it is. And I'm seeing it still reflected to me through other people in my life, men and women. There's that cultural conditioning of black and white thinking that doesn't leave room for all of the other stuff, for the lack of a better word, that's actually real and present all the time. For me, it's another box that I choose not to be in. And just because that's my decision doesn't mean that that's the right decision for somebody else, clearly.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's so multi-layered. And I again, I've been on this path of not even, for me, it was like I didn't even know that I was in a place to feeling like I needed to forgive the church and the masculine face of God, for example, and Jesus. And that actually came to me in a plant medicine ceremony a couple of years ago. And I was like, holy shit, I had no idea that I even needed to go there. And I really went on this exploration with myself. And I realized, so, because the reason why I asked that is because so much of what you expressed in the beginning was around liberation and freedom. And I realized how much that I was actually holding myself back, how much I was not forgiving others, not forgiving myself, how much I was judging others, how much I was triggered by others, how much I was wanting others to accept me for who I am, and I wasn't doing the same. And so I think it's that piece of, again, it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. It's okay if we have our moments, but ultimately what I'm hearing from you is very similar to what I've experienced over the past few years, is my ability to allow people to be who they are and to believe in what they believe in and to trust in their journey and to trust and to not expect me to know what their journey is and why they're here and why they're believing in what they believe in and why they're associating what they associate with. And that's created so much spaciousness inside of me, because our needing to be right as a human species and our needing to belong, right? Like, in order to belong, these people need to agree with me, right? That's what we're indoctrinated into, what we absolutely know is not true. And I would imagine you and I have a lot of similarities and synchronicities, but I'm sure there's plenty of things that we do. Like, I started praying the rosary again because I started going back to the roots, like the divine mother roots of what that, like, object represented for me, and just going back into, like, where am I triggered? Where do I not agree when I recite a Hail Mary? Where am I like, I don't believe this doesn't feel right? Where am I wanting to change the words? Where am I still feeling some type of way, right? Just to like play. And I feel like if we can all notice the parts where it's like, if this still triggers us, an opening gets to happen. Like, why am I still triggered? Why am I still not wanting to associate with this thing or say I am not that, right? And how that creates more separation. And so, again, forever a student, like, I still have my moments of eye rolls. I still have, and it's like, I'm like, wait, who am I? Who am I to judge? Who am I? Like, the more that I believe that we do this work with ourselves and we really connect with our divinity, the more that we're able to be in relationship. And again, it doesn't mean that these people get to be in our life. Like with your mother, that soul contract could have absolutely, right? Like, we don't have to forgive someone by talking to them over the phone. We can forgive people who are no longer in this earth plane, right? We can move so much through our own experience and our own healing journey. Only you know if she's meant to be in your life in whatever capacity. And that's the beautiful thing, is like, okay, there might still be a little bit there with trust. Okay, where am I not trusting myself? Where am I not trusting other, right? Where am I still holding on to this thing? It's again, the willingness and the open-mindedness of like, oh, there's still something there. Okay. Like, I'm not making myself wrong for it. I'm not trying to get somewhere quickly. I'm not trying to fix this thing and make it go away, right? To feel better. It's like, oh, there it is again. Okay. I thought I was through that. And there's a little bit more. So that felt really important to share, because that's been emerging for me a lot in the realm of spirituality. Like, there's dogma in all forms of spirituality, because it's what the human mind does. It's like, this is the way, this is right. You want to come over here. This is what it is. This is what it means to be a, spiritual being having a human experience. And so I just want people to feel into that. Like, this is the work. It's like, I had this experience, maybe from this lifetime, maybe not, maybe a combination of a little bit of everything. And this is the willingness that it takes to understand, why do I judge other people? Why am I triggered? Why am I reactive? Where am I wanting to belong? And and banishing myself, right? Where do I do that? Where do I try to banish others? Where do we ridicule others? Where do we pretend that we've got all the answers and they don't? Right? Like, this is that like humility that I'm really hearing from you.
Yeah, when I left my mother's care when I was 11, it really was what I describe as the beginning of my self-imposed exile, you know? And it is challenging for me to separate my mother from the church because she's a born again minister. I'm also aware that I will never be who she wants me to be, which is, the prodigal daughter returns, she wants me to take up the work with her. The irony is that we support other women primarily in similar ways, but her her structure, her belief system is very old school Christian, I'll just call it that. And I still have my rebellious teenager that shows up. I've tried cultivating a relationship, a working relationship by setting boundaries with her. And really it just like it came to, she sends me Bible verses instead of saying, hello, good morning, how are you? Like kind of mainstream, like how to approach a conversation with somebody that you don't really talk to every day sort of thing. But, and I have a little bit of dark humor in the fact that, my mom was like, I'll pray for you, sweetie. And my response was, great, mom, I'll dance naked in the woods for you, like, and that's how I feel about it. I commune with the divine and the God of my understanding in nature. I don't need to go, do these particular uh, practices at a particular place, with a roof and a floor. So I think that there is a big uh, difference between organized religion and spirituality, and I just identify more with the other, even though I was brought up Christian, and I'm not saying that it's good or bad because I don't even like those words in my vocabulary. It's just different.
Yeah. Well, and it's like whenever anyone tries to impose their beliefs onto another, regardless of what it is, right? That's where we know, right? There's no acceptance there.
Right.
There's not an openness. And it's interesting, right? Because your mother actually, I believe, like from what I'm hearing from you, it's almost like she is the archetype of the church in a lot of ways for you. And so, yeah, I mean, this is such a deep conversation, but it's so powerful. I'm watching this series right now, all of a sudden last night, on extraterrestrials. Like, it's a 4-episode miniseries where people had these experiences and the government shut them down and people ridiculed. And there was one at a school in Zimbabwe where 60 children had this extraterrestrial experience where the being came and the being was telling them about how to take care of the planet and why it's important to love this planet. And they were explaining how it was all communicated telepathically and all of the adults shut them down. And I'm like, okay, I was guided to watch this because, again, it's the same thing of like, just because somebody else can't fathom it to be true, it doesn't mean that people don't get to share their experience, right? It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It didn't mean that it's not reality. And so that's the difference, is that until we can all just move through our stuff, right, and have the courage to look at where the wounds are so that we can allow people to be exactly where they are, right? Like, love and accept exactly where our parents came from and their parents came from and their parents came from, no matter how much we disagree or how much we don't understand. That's what I believe the future is. And just that one piece of like these children who were probably ranging from like 6 to 12 had adults telling them that they're liars, had adults telling them this isn't your experience. And then to hear their adult lives 20 plus years later talking about the trauma and the healing and what it took for them to actually be able to trust that they could speak their experience, that they could actually be heard and use their voice because of what had happened. It's just really enlightening me in terms of like how important it is to foster children in letting them be themselves and letting them share their experience and letting them live and letting them teach us. So as we're coming back full circle to my understanding that I'm not creating this little boy inside of me, I'm creating the body, safe container, you know, a safe home. He's got a lot of wisdom. He's got a lot of lessons. He's got a lot of inspiration. He's got a lot to share. And that's my ultimate goal as a mother, is to just create this availability of letting this child be themselves, not trying to project what I believe he should be or who he should be or how he should act or what he should believe in or how he should pray or how he should be able
Yes.
to.
I love that you're providing that for him. And, you know, children, we do come onto this planet with a lot of wisdom. And every day that we're alive, we start to forget. But I love everything that you just said because, and I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. Um, as a child, I had very different experiences with the other side of the veil. And there was a real continuous fear of persecution, both with my mother and, you know, with our religion, because like I literally got kicked out of Sunday school for saying that I believed that the angels were aliens. Like I was disfellowshipped from more than one church because of saying things like that, because I was always asking questions that made people uncomfortable.
Mm.
And what I was met with was that I was crazy, you
Mhm.
know, or it meant I was going to have to go talk to a doctor. I might be hospitalized. I might have to like have an exorcism or be baptized in one more church. It was completely unacceptable for me to be myself. And that is exactly the premise of everything that I did not want to be as a parent. Because I don't believe that children should be seen and not heard. That's how I was raised. No, I'm not on board with that. Like, I know that both you and I are the kind of women that allow the unfolding of another human's journey organically, whatever shows up. And I know that you have the strength to really foster that independence in your little big soul baby boy. So
I
I
appreciate that.
wanted to put that in there before I forgot because it felt really
Yeah.
weaved together there.
Oh, thank you for sharing. There's a movie, and it's interesting that I'm like, wow, why am I fascinated with this all of a sudden? The Michael Pena movie, A Million Miles Away, based on a true story, migrant farmer turned astronaut. And sure enough, like asking questions like, why do we have stars? I think that's what he said. Like, why are there stars in the universe? You know, just asking these questions from a very young age and drawing pictures. And it was his teacher who it was one teacher who led him to believe that it was possible, and he did it. And I'm just very fascinated by all of it. It's really interesting. But what I'm noticing is like that it's always that divine dance between protection and allowing, right? Because it's our role as mothers to protect, but also to not try to control, right? And to also create the space. So I'm noticing like I'm very drawn to these books and documentaries now, just noticing, this is where they went too far. Okay, this is what it took, right? This is okay. And of course, we make mistakes all the time. We're going to make mistakes in motherhood just like we make mistakes in life. So let's close with this because I mean, we could clearly do this all day. And I know I've already taken up a lot of your time. It's funny. I started most of the time, the episodes are an hour, but I interviewed this guy the other day who reached out to me on Instagram and wanted to be on the show. And we talked for 2 hours. I mean, it was just like we couldn't stop. And so I might start to be like, we're going to not have an end to this because we don't want to stop it if there's conversations that get to come through. So I'm in my motherhood journey. And you sent me a message last week. Do you want to share with our community what you're going through and all of the downloads that you received and why you were so eager to share it with me, and how we're actually both, even though in differing stages of our journeys in this lifetime, in the form of what it means to be a woman per se, lots of synchronicities, but of course some differences, but how they're kind of weaving together.
Well, I will do my best to recap. I think I just left you that message and then went about my business. Um, so I know that part of it was sharing with you that through this experience of really learning what it is to be an embodied woman, to be in the confidence and to, release a lot of that trauma and move through those emotions to create the energetic pathways to be at a fuller capacity to experience like a broader spectrum of emotionality, so just really, really creating that space. And then at the beginning of our conversation this morning, you brought it to my attention that why that's important for me is because just when we think that we have mastered something, like we have arrived, and I always say I haven't graduated, right? This is the ever unfolding rose here. That the next level presents itself. And for me, that's looking like being in perimenopause. And I had suspected a couple of years ago that I was going through the change. And so I went and I went to the doctor and I got my blood work done and all of that. And it turns out I wasn't. But intuitively, like we know what's going on in our bodies. So even though it wasn't like showing up in my lab work, I knew that I was at the threshold of that season. And I'm not really like through the doorway yet or anything, but it's brought up this whole new layer of self-acceptance because there's this grief and this sadness that's coming up for me about losing my youth, not being as attractive anymore, feeling physically uncomfortable with my body, which are activating some trust issues because I don't know what's going to happen next, like, am I going to have a moon time? Am I not going to, like, what does this all mean? And who does that, it's like my identity wants to attach itself to something, you know? And for a lot of us, when we think about going through the change, we think of the wicked old witch, the crone hermit living alone in the woods, which I fully could embrace that. There is a side of me that's already there. But it's also described as the goddess of achievements. We're entering the time of the goddess of achievements, where our legacy has become the center of attention. Like for me, my baby's turning 18 November 11th. He's my 11/11 baby. So my youngest is about to be a legal adult. And my oldest, is 25. And so I am in the season that I'm in now. And there's this, like I said, this whole nother level of acceptance and trust and um celebration. First comes the, oh, I don't like how this feels. I'm sad. I'm grieving. What does this mean? Am I still attractive? Am I dried up? Like, it doesn't mean that we're some dried up old husk now, like, believe me, I still feel plenty juicy. But there's a
Ow,
part of me
ow.
that's like, what comes next? And I have a high propensity for delving into the voyage of the unknown. And so I am embracing this as well. And I'm just now getting to the point of celebration. So there was, and I'll have to look this up because I don't remember the name of the book or the author, but much like the red tent, when we as young women are entering our time of menstruation and young womanhood, there's also a ceremony for sisters coming together that are celebrating the change that they're going through in that time of entering the goddess of achievements. So it's revered as a rite of passage into that next season rather than you've now reached an expiration date. It's all downhill from here, which is the very 3D, cultural way perhaps that we've been modeled this transition in womanhood. So yes, I love that you're a first time mama, you know, and it's like we together are creating this complete circle. Obviously I'm going to continue to be a mom, but for my time that I've identified with as more of the maiden and mother is now reaching a level of completion and blooming into this next journey, this next season. So
I'm pretty impressed. I re-listened to your voice message from last week, and I think you had summed it all up pretty beautifully. So my soul sister Rima Bonario, she has added queen in between mother and crone. So it's just like the 4 seasons, right? Maiden to mother to queen to crone. So that feels celebratory to me, right? Because there's still so
I'm in
much.
my queendom then.
You're in your queendom. Yeah. And again, presencing the humanness of, let me just tell you, that first trimester, there was a lot of resistance on my end. I felt like, what is happening to my body? I felt like I had no autonomy over my body. Everything was changing. My hormones, food aversions, levels of exhaustion I didn't know were possible. In the middle of moving, just added stressors, just having to shift things in my business. I mean, just also temporarily living with my dad in between moving from Florida to North Carolina, being surrounded by men who, no matter how much they want to try to support, they will never understand what it's like unless you're in the experience. And it required so much surrender. And that's what I'm grateful that you shared that, right? Because then it was like, okay, right? So now I'm in my second trimester and it's like, okay, like I got it, right? And then things change again and things keep continuing to change. And the grief is so real. I mean, the amount of times that I'm like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to be able to shower alone again or pee alone again or think about just myself for once ever again? Yes, I'm sure, but it'll be a long time, right? And so the humanness and the just presencing, like I had moments where I was like, I don't want this right now. This is not what I planned. My plan was to move and to have everything perfectly wrapped up with a bow and to have everything figured out. And then I was going to start my family, and to just be okay with, like, there was the part of me that wasn't ready, that didn't feel ready, that didn't want it, that didn't want to accept it. And also the part of me who knew that this is exactly what I wanted and exactly what I needed and exactly what I've been preparing for. But allowing all of that. And that's, again, what I'm hearing from you is we have got to grieve the part of us that we're transitioning out of in order to make room for the new, in order to embrace the new. And it's scary. Like, it's like, who are you now? Right. For me, it's like, who am I as a mother? And for you, it's like, who am I with adult children? It's a different identity. And I think it circles back to what we were talking about with institutionalized anything, religion. But like this, we want to attach to the thing. We want to, it's like, this is who I am. I've got it, right? Like the mind's like, I can hold on to this. I am Michele, the mother, right? I am Lindsay, the entrepreneur, the service-led entrepreneur, right? And there's a part of me that is afraid that I won't have that anymore. There's afraid that I have, like, that I'm afraid that I have to sacrifice my soul work in order to be a mother. And I know that that's a story. I know that that's not true. I know that I get to have this full life and do it all, right? And same thing with you. Just like your motherhood journey is far from over, but you get to be in the celebration of your queendom. So yeah, there's definitely some golden threads woven throughout this conversation. And it's interesting because I've already had Lindsay Lee on the podcast, and she's a beautiful soul who also, you're in her program, or you were in her program, right? So the beauty continues. And you've got your own program that you're in the process of developing that's launching soon. And what I talked about,
October 14th, really soon.
October 14th. So what I want to share is I'm realizing as my work is shifting, I am like, okay, I don't have to do everything myself. I don't have to do it all alone. And there are those of you who have been in my work and other work and everything in between who are taking the torch and creating your own containers, your own empowerment and embodiment, and activating portals for women who are ready to say yes. And it makes me feel so relieved and so held, and also so proud that this is how it works. Like, I don't have to do all of this, and I don't have to do all of this alone. And as my work evolves, others are going to continue to bring it and with their flavor. So talk about it. What is it? When is it? And then also talk about your books, talk about the ways people can get in touch with you. Just tell everybody how they can get all of the luscious Michele Leeper in their life.
I love it. My brain got stuck on something you said earlier about, will I ever be able to like use the bathroom by myself again? And I would say give it 4 years, because, you know, the dogs, and it's pretty much a family reunion every time you need to go to the bathroom. Um, anyway, I digress. So yeah, I have an embodiment journey program called Becoming Sanctuary, which is really tying together both of my chapter essays that's already been published last July 13th, and that one is Turning Point: Empowering Stories, Volume 2. In that book, my chapter is The Divine Wild Mother, Becoming Sanctuary. So I've now taken what was created from that journey into my own embodiment program, which I'm offering beginning October 14th through November 26th. So it's a 7-week program, a container for other women that are ready to explore and gift themselves the privilege of experiencing this healing modality, you know? And I have witnessed some huge transformation, not only in myself, but other women that have either done the work with me or that I get to be in community with, supporting other sisters that are continuing the work too, because we really have created a beautiful foundation and a strong lineage, you know? So I love the way we support each other in this work, on this journey, as it evolves and is now offered in multiple ways by a few of us that are continuing to put our own flavor out there. So I'm actually really excited to offer this next piece. And I have some other things on the burner. So I have the other anthology piece that I've been currently working on is for a book called Sacred Connection. And my chapter in that is called A Woman Reborn, where I talk about a lot of the relationship that we've already sort of, fleshed out a bit here in our conversation about the mother wound, um, identity, as well as, where my stuck trauma was at the beginning of this journey, and how I have moved through that, and how I now feel very strongly called that this is part of what I get to offer to other women as well. Because I have seen women who at the very beginning could barely even be on camera. I remember what that feels like too, thinking, how does my hair look? Yes, my teeth are crooked. You know, is my mascara smeared? I wore this shirt yesterday. Like all the bullshit, right? That we start playing through our heads. So to be able to see somebody coming from that place of, I don't even know if I can be on camera with a bunch of other women, to full on stepping up and dropping into a piece of music and allowing her body to move the way it wants to move, because it's not a performance. It's really allowing it to move, identifying where the things are trapped, the emotions, the trauma in our body, being able to identify it while standing there bravely in our vulnerability to be witnessed. There is so much magic in that process. So having been on the receiving side of it, being the one who in the moment is being witnessed, and then also being able to adorn other women, to see them and to see them receive the gift of being seen. That is what it's all about for me. So there are little nuggets in both of my anthology chapter essays. And now the most recent project that I'm working on is creating my own Oracle deck. So today I'm actually starting a 4-month process of working in another sistership container where we're supporting each other for 4 months while we each individually create our own Oracle deck to be on point with my brand and all things. Michele, I'm calling mine the Divine Wild Sanctuary Oracle, because that really feels like it's bringing together everything that I've been sharing about myself. And yeah, it is my vibration.
I did not know you were doing, is it with the Stara? You're doing the Oracle deck?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She
I love
really, really is the perfect writing midwife.
He is. Flower of Life Press. Shout out to Astara. And this is why it's so fun. I'm like, oh my gosh, I connected you. Well, actually, Astara was on the podcast, and that's when you heard the episode.
Yes.
And that's how you kind of, this is how it works. Like we're like, ooh, there's a resonance. Okay. And then we follow
There
that.
is a knowing that happens when, like when you and I met, it just clicked. The meter clicked. Everything made sense. It was very much the same experience that I had with Astara, witnessing her on your podcast. I saw her, I listened to her, I felt her, and I said, I'm going to work with her. Can you connect us?
Totally.
Poof, magic happens.
And this is the power, because I actually was just sitting with it. I'm like, do I want to create an Oracle deck? And then I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'm in emptying mode. This is not your time, maybe in the future, but this is how we've got to be in our bodies in order to know, like, I cannot wait to get my hands on your deck. I'm sure there's plenty of other sisters that I know and also don't know that are going to be in that creation mode. And this is the power of it. So we're going to make sure we put everything in the show notes that's currently available. And then when your big Mac, I'm going to call it Mac Mama, not Mac Daddy, when your big Mac Mama book comes out, which by the way, like, are you
Yes,
just,
I didn't even talk about that.
oh, I thought
So
you did.
yeah,
You did.
my memoir series,
Memoir.
which is
Yes.
called Daughter,
Daughter.
and it
Okay.
has all of the dirt, all of the dirt of my, and and yes. So these are just little nuggets. The second anthology piece that I'm currently working on, this will be available November 11th on my son's 18th birthday. And that one is through the Center of Influence Publishing.
Beautiful.
And that's online too.
So we'll make sure we include everything in the show notes below, the ways to get in touch if you're curious and interested in Michelle's body of work. Her program is starting very, very soon. And I think when I asked you, I think it was only just like a few days before. Like I've said yes to things 24 hours before, 4 hours before, the doors are finally closing. And so it can be 4 months before, it can be 4 hours before, but you'll know if you know. And as you were talking about being on screen, again, like I keep getting this impulse. This whole time I'm like, I worked out and I didn't have time to shower before this, and my hair looks oily. And what's going on with my lighting? I don't feel radiant today. It's like I'm having these moments of presence, and then it's like, nope, there you are. Up, there it is again. Up. The humanness is so real, and it's okay. And I'm like, 70,000 thoughts a day. There's going to be some that are like, go wash your hair, go take a shower. You look like this on camera. But again, people are feeling our auras. People are receiving the medicine of the vibration of the words, right? It doesn't matter what we look like, although it is fun to look sassy, and I'm loving you. I don't know, whatever. It almost looks like your necklace looks like the
It's a scarab.
a scarab. That's what I was going to say. It looks like an
Yeah.
Egyptian scarab, and you've got your amazing red on, which I love you in red. There's something with Michelle in the red that's deeply activating. And yeah, just bringing the yeah, we're going to have moments where we don't feel our best or feel like we look our best, but we can still be in our power. We can still be present. We can still give 100% of whatever percentage we're feeling that day. And that's what I believe you really bring to the table, Michelle. So what a gift to witness your journey. Thank you for saying yes to yourself. Thank you for saying yes to our relationship. And, you and I are not in that intimate sisterhood container anymore. We're not in, you've graduated from my year-long program. So we're not with each other every single day like we were for many years. And it's almost better because every time I sit in front of you or every time we connect, I'm blown away by what you're cultivating and where you're at in the form of vibration. It's kind of blowing my mind. And so I think that's the beauty of having those moments where I can come back and be like, oh my gosh, hasn't been that long. And look at what she's creating, look what she's, cultivating in the world. So thank you.
Well, I received that, and I appreciate you expressing that. Thank you for creating this time to be in presence intimately with me. I feel like we're just, two girlfriends sitting at the kitchen table having coffee. And that's the way I love everything to feel. It's back to that vibration. It's like, this truly is a come as you are. There is no, look good. If you want to look good, look good. And just be who, just come as you are, like they say. And so thank you for helping me embody that safe container that gives other people permission to just show up. Just show up and see what unfolds.
That's all we can do. And thank you for staying over time, because I feel like we needed to touch on all of these important topics. So.
Has it been more than an hour? I told you I'm not on the linear time space continuum right now.
I'm like, okay, there's clearly, we're going to have a part two. Perhaps when a couple more of your projects come out, we'll have a part two and see what wants to unfold there. But I really do appreciate you going there, for sharing your journey, sharing your story. Just every time, again, I learn something new about you, it just makes me feel more connected to you. And I think, again, that's where your gifts really lie. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I love you
So
so much.
I love you too. Remember to check out the show notes, and we'll definitely put the ways that you can get in touch with Michele related to her program, related to all of the books she's got on the horizon and everything in between. All right, Soul Fam, thanks for tuning in. Much love.
Much love.